Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Yep, it's the world's most dangerous morning show, The Breakfast Club. Charlamagne the God, Angela Yee, and we got a guest in the building. He is the youngest and first black pilot to fly solo around the globe. Captain Barrington Irving. What's happening, my brother?
Doing well. Glad to be here.
Now, what made you want to do such a thing?
You know, flying around the world, honestly, it just started off as just things that came together. To be quite honest, there's this black pilot who introduced me to aviation. Random chance meeting in the store. He was dressed in a nice uniform, stepped out of a luxurious car, walked in the store, and I'm just saying to myself, this brother looks like he makes a lot of money.
Word.
Had no clue what he did. And he saw us staring at him, walked up to me, and I said to him, how much money do you make? And when he told me how much money he made, I was like, legally, this is how much money you make? And he was like, yeah, this is my career. This is what I do. So I took an interest in aviation, and then it turned into something that I was passionate about. And next thing you know, he challenged me to give back. And I was like, I don't have any money to give back. How could I possibly give back? So I then came up with the concept of just flying around the world to inspire students. Knew nothing as it relates to setting any records. The youngest before me, the youngest prior to me at that time was 37 years of age.
Wow. And you were only 15 when you met this pilot?
Yeah, I was only 15 when I met him, and I did the flight, the Guinness World Record, to become the youngest person and the first black man. I did that at the age of 23.
Sheesh.
So
How much did he tell you he made?
Man, he told me he made $117 an hour. This was back in 2001.
What was he driving?
Oh man, he was in a nice white Lincoln Navigator. I was like, okay, that's where I want to be, you know.
No, that's important because a lot of times in the hood, the reason kids gravitate towards certain things because they see the drug dealers driving certain cars. Or they see the basketball players, the football players, the rappers. So they don't know anything about aviation. Go get an aviation license.
Yeah, and you know what's the most ironic thing about that? When you look at a lot of airports and even private airports, they're in a lot of our backyards. Right? That's a resource sitting in our backyard, and a lot of people don't even realize it.
I'm trying to think of a time I've been on a plane and I've seen the pilot and I've had a black pilot. I think it might have happened once and I was really excited.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I don't ever see women either.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting a little bit better, but we still got a ways to go. I remember when I got into aviation, less than 1% of airline pilots were black. I think now it's
2 to 3.
It's 2 to 3% right now.
Jeez, that's getting better, huh?
And less than that are women, but it's starting to get a little bit better. We still got a ways to go, but it's starting.
So were you ever intimidated to become a black pilot because of those low percentages?
Oh, big time. I remember, trying to get involved in aviation and just, for example, access an air traffic control tower. I'll never forget one of the questions, the gentleman said to me, look, you're interested in flying? I said, yeah. He was like, man, it's so expensive and all these different things. And, people bring up all these barriers of why you can't do it, whether it's the financial costs or, requires a lot of discipline or a lot of math and science. And, hey, if it wasn't for my mentor, Captain Gary Robinson, who still flies for United, if it wasn't for him, I would have fell for that.
Wow.
I always hear there's all these qualifications too as far as your eyesight. Like, do you have to have 20/20 vision?
Got to have real good eyesight.
And a lot of people don't have that, right? Or
a lot of people don't, but they're a little bit more lenient. You can have some corrective vision to a certain degree.
You get LASIK.
Yeah, to a certain degree. And but it's definitely a lot more accessible now than it was even when I started back in 2002.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody told me that pilots don't really do shit. They just land and take off. So once you take off, you can just put it on autopilot and then you gotta land it
until an emergency happens.
Well, it depends. It depends what type of airplane you're flying, right? So, to a certain degree, that's right. I mean, you have some airplanes that have auto takeoff, auto throttle, auto landing. But it still requires a lot. You're going 500-600 miles per hour. You got to think ahead of the plane, think ahead of the weather, think ahead of all these different things. And it depends what type of plane you're flying. But definitely when you're first starting out, it's old school. Like everything is on you. You don't have all that luxurious technology.
And anything could happen. Like a bird could fly into the engine or something crazy, and then you got to take over. Yeah. And when you fly those little planes, you really have to do a lot more. I feel like because I've been on some of those small, like 8-passenger planes where you go from one island to another small island, and that requires a lot.
It requires a lot, and you don't have a crew of people supporting you. So
it's just you.
It's just basically you, and you're communicating with air traffic control, and You're monitoring things from maintenance, you're monitoring weather, all these different things in order to safely get to where you got to go.
How far did you have to fly to accomplish the world record?
Oh, goodness. I flew 30,000 miles. I made 27 stops in 13 countries. Average flight leg was about 10, 11 hours. And picture this. This was in a single-engine airplane.
Sheesh.
Right? And I took out 3 of the 4 seats in the plane, put in an extra 75 gallons of fuel, and I'd literally fly nonstop for, as long as about 13, 14 hours at a time.
Wow. What were some of the unexpected things that happened on that trip?
Man, biggest challenge was radar. I shouldn't say that, but biggest challenge was weather because I didn't have any weather radar.
So you didn't know when you was about to run in the rain.
Oh, yeah. All you just see is the clouds, but you don't know how intense the clouds are, how strong the cells were. Flew through a sandstorm, for example, over Saudi Arabia, ice storms. I had no de-icing. And when you get ice on your wings on an airplane, that is nothing to play with. You'll literally fall out of the sky if you're not careful. And
so was that an emergency landing when that happens?
No.
When you have to de-ice the wing?
I didn't have anything to de-ice the wing. This was over the Bering Sea. So I don't know if you guys ever see that show where they're hunting for all these crabs and stuff in the middle of nowhere in Alaska. I was flying over the Bering Sea.
Oh, so you was over like that new Area 51 area. It's like a new part. It's a new Area 51 they got in Alaska. I forgot what it's called.
Yeah, it's because there's certain parts of the world that's highly magnetized. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Were you by yourself?
Yep, solo trip. The entire trip was solo. Back then air traffic control was, was somewhat limited. Some of the countries you fly into, yes, the international language is English, but, in certain places it's very difficult to understand them, and it was extremely challenging. I thought I would have died at least 6-7 times on that trip.
Did you face racism in other places?
Or
even here?
I definitely faced it in a different form. So I face racism from the standpoint of just being American. Right? In some of the countries that you go into, like they don't want to see an American, they don't want to talk to an American. But for the most part, everybody was welcoming, everyone was supportive, people were fascinated. I remember there was a certain part of Japan, for example, as soon as I landed, when you're flying for that long and you don't have a restroom in the airplane, the first thing you want to do is go use the restroom. And people were so excited, like they literally followed me straight into the bathroom.
So you didn't wear a diaper or anything?
No diapers, no diapers. And I did bring extra tubes with me so I could do number 1, no number 2s. But yeah, it was definitely.
So you were like,
difficult.
I can't eat none of these tacos before I get on.
No. Oh, definitely not tacos.
Why were they excited though when you landed?
For some people, aviation is still like an extraordinary industry. Here in the States, it's kind of lost that luster from the 50s and 60s. But in other countries,
I get it.
It's like, it's everything, and to be called a captain, it's almost as if like, you're an idol in some places because people truly have a fascination with flying.
We take it for granted. Like, we don't realize like you're literally on a seat in the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, take it for granted.
You know what's the other thing too? Because, for example, I'm afraid of heights. Right? I'm afraid of heights.
I saw I heard you was on Jamel Hill's podcast and you said that. And I was
what
like,
an ironic
how the hell are you
occupation.
afraid of heights and you can fly?
Yeah. I mean, it's totally different. If I'm standing off the edge of a tall building or a cliff or something like that.
Well, why would you do that?
Like, why would I do that? But like flying an airplane, I went through all the training and all these different things and, all the math and science. I know what's going on with the forces and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely, sometimes you think about it, you're less than 5 inches from being outside in an extreme environment.
Have you ever had to parachute out?
Nope. However, one of the expeditions we did, so we have this curriculum called Flying Classroom, right? And what we do is we take subjects kids find boring in school, and we basically create these dynamic expeditions for students that I fulfill out in the field, and then we convert it into a lesson because most math and science teachers don't have that professional experience in the field. So one of the expeditions we did was called a halo jump. So he jumped out of a plane at 30,000 feet.
Oh my gosh!
To give you perspective.
How old are these kids?
No, this was just me.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
So yeah, no.
I was like, wait, you made the kids jump out?
No, some of the stuff we do as part of flying classroom is just way too dangerous, so we don't have kids doing it. But, you know, I go out in the field and do it, and that was crazy. You know, that was my first time jumping out of a plane.
And being scared of heights, I'm sure that had to be really tough.
Oh, yeah, because the highest a skydiver can jump is 15,000
You would have to push me out of the plane, like, okay, go.
Yeah, it's definitely something else.
There's a STEM research element to the flying classroom thing too, right?
Yes, because you know, when we talk about STEM, of course, it's a very popular term right now as far as science, technology, engineering, and math. But a lot of people don't know what it means, and you know, to connect that to the real world, that's where the disconnect comes in for a lot of young people.
People act like, why do I need to learn math, or why do I need to learn science?
Yep. And you know, that's a lot of perspective for students. Why? Because a lot of teachers struggle with connecting the real world to the classroom. And that's the challenge. I mean, look at this room that we're sitting in right now. There's nothing but math and science going on. But it takes an educator to be able to connect that with what you physically have to, quote unquote, learn in the classroom.
And Trayvon Martin was one of your students, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What was that relationship like?
Man, it was honestly a good kid. He was a really good kid. You know, he actually reminded me a lot of myself because I played football and I thought football was my way out. I played ball for a high school at the time that was ranked #1 in the country. I think they're ranked #4 or #3 in the country right now. But I played ball for Miami Northwestern Senior High School. And I remember when Trayvon came into our program, he was playing Pop Warner football, and you know, my high school colors were blue and gold. His Pop Warner football team was gold and black. And, you know, I saw that transformation where he went from football to his eyes really started to open up into aviation. So
yeah,
he was
his friends used to say that. He wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah, he wanted to either be a pilot or aircraft mechanic. And, you know, still to this day, I have his original application that he wrote. That's hung up in our office that, you know, one of the most powerful statements he writes in that application, and this was when he was in, I think, 7th or 8th grade, he said, I like to finish what I start. You know, and that to me was like, matter of fact, I'll just read it to you if you want right quick.
Please.
And we love these true life stories because they'll try to paint a picture of a Trayvon Martin like he was somebody threatening and menacing, and we get to see in reality he was an aspiring pilot or mechanic and a good kid.
that was out there. His friend, if you listen to people that really knew him, they always said, you know, he wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, in his original application, it says, I believe I should be accepted because I'm very interested in aircrafts and I'm also dedicated, reliable, and I like to finish what I start.
Wow.
I strive to be the best that I can be to make myself a better person. I think and hope that this will benefit me towards my future career as an aircraft mechanic or pilot.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's I mean, that's hung up in my office every day for me to, you know, remind me of why we do this work. Because we have a nonprofit called Experience Aviation, and we basically get kids to build airplanes and race cars and do all these amazing things so they can realize their highest self through math and science.
And you flew one of those airplanes, right? You fly them?
Yeah.
Is that scary? Because
very much scary. You know what makes
students are building these aircrafts. I don't know if I take it that far.
You know what really makes it scary is when you listen to the process of a student building a race car or an airplane, you hear the oh crap, or I messed up, or I can't like you hear all those things in the process. And yeah, man, yeah, definitely powerful. But you know, to be able to show students, you know, like Trayvon and others, kids from all different walks of life, what they can accomplish through these fields, it's probably the most rewarding thing that we do.
I want to go back to Trayvon for a second. How did his death change your life, and what did it teach you?
When Trayvon passed, it really pushed me further in education because, see, at that point for me, I was still doing my thing. I had endorsement deals, you know, giving speaking engagements, doing all those different things. And when he passed away, I was like, man, we lost potential. That's how I really looked at it, right? And
he didn't pass away. He got murdered.
Yeah. You know, he got murdered, and when that went down, you know, a lot of people looked at like a life loss, and I looked at it as potential loss. You know, because let's be honest, if I was to pass away at his age, you know, not many positive things would have been said about me, right?
That's a fact.
And I really looked at that, and I was just like, it pushed me more in education, and that actually pushed me into getting more involved in schools and with curriculum, and that's how I started the flying classroom, to be quite honest. And, you know, Trayvon would have been part of the first group of kids to build a race car. Right, we challenged kids to build a car faster than a Ferrari 430 Spider, and he would have been part of that group to do that, and he never got his chance to.
You're doing something in his honor next year, right?
Yeah, so next year he would have turned 25 years of age. So what we're doing is we're gathering 25 students from the community. We're based in Miami, Florida, and we're going to challenge them to build a race car in honor of Trayvon Martin, and give these kids scholarships, the opportunity to build this race car, the opportunity to realize their highest potential in math and science. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to it. We're working with mom and dad from the Trayvon Martin Foundation. So, you know, everyone's really excited about it and doing this project. And I know DJ Envy is big in the car, so I'm sure.
I know. He needs to come out there.
Yeah, definitely see that.
That's amazing to be able to tie in, like you said, real life experiences, because people don't make that connection. Like, why is science, technology, engineering, math important? And then you can really show them this is what you can do. And there's so much potential that kids might not even think about, like you said, because if you hadn't had that chance encounter, you wouldn't be here today.
No, absolutely not. And I think as adults, we sometimes forget, although the journey is important, kids don't care about the journey. They care about the destination.
That's right.
Right? Remember the question I asked Captain Robinson? How much money do you make? That's right. That's what we care about.
Right. That's how Envy became a DJ. He saw Clue driving a nice car. He was like, what do you do? And he's like, I'm a DJ.
Yeah. I got to get Envy in the car. So what we're doing, one of our partners at Opelika Airport is the Concourse Club, and they built a private racetrack inside of a private airport, and they're working with us with the students.
That's amazing.
And I definitely want to get him out on the track down there. And see
we'll make it happen. I'll tell him when I know he had to. He's actually on his way to Miami.
Oh, awesome.
That's why he had to leave to catch that flight.
He would have enjoyed this conversation. He left because he didn't know who you were.
No, he had to catch a flight to Miami. And I want to ask you this: in the program, proportionately, how many girls are in this program?
So we average about 40%.
That's great.
Yeah,
because I feel like women aren't reached out to as young girls as much as they should be too.
Well, you know what's probably the most powerful thing is when it comes to the builds and stuff, the young ladies are actually some of our best students. They turn out the best products, and I even find myself, we're more critical of what the boys built, the components they built, versus the girls. Like, the girls are very detailed. Yeah, they're going to take a little bit longer, but, man, they knock it out the park all the time. All the time.
Well, I'm glad that, you are the influencer that, these kids need, because you had an influencer growing up. So I'm glad they can see you and say, you know what, I might want to get in aviation now. And you flew around the world. I got one question for you. Is the earth flat around?
Is the earth flat around? No question, the earth is round.
Okay, I believe you, but there's a lot of flat earth niggas out here that believe the earth is flat.
Well, I mean, let's talk about it a little bit, right? If the earth was flat, how could we have weather?
Break that down.
So how is wind created? How is wind generated?
With the same fan Beyonce uses. It's just a big one that the government uses to trick us.
No, man. There's something called Coriolis force, right? And I know that for sure. And also, when I fly at higher altitudes, 51,000, 53,000 feet, of course, airlines, they're between 30, 35,000 feet. You literally see the curvature of the earth. And you talk about things such as magnetism. Mm-hmm. How come in certain parts, it's more magnetized in other areas? It's because the earth is round. There's no other way you can get there, and I know a lot of celebrities and stuff, they'll say, oh, the earth is flat, but
they on drugs.
Yeah.
Nobody I'm cool with.
It's not, there's no way it can be flat. There's just too much scientific evidence, and even evidence I use as a pilot between magnetism, how weather is formed, all of those type of things, and that can only work if the Earth is round.
There are some things that science can't explain, though, right?
That is true. That is true.
Like what?
Like a flat world.
Well,
like what?
Like you said, what? Like the flat?
Like the world being flat.
Well, I mean, the world definitely is not flat. It just can't be, and that's not one of them. Because, and let me tell you why. If the world was flat, okay, where you fall off at?
That's why I asked you, because you flew all around the world. You would have saw the edge.
Where would you fall off? I literally flew all the way around the world to circle the Earth is about 30,000 nautical miles. And trust me, it is flat. It is flat, and not only is it flat, if the Earth
is round.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you just told on yourself.
No.
I knew it.
Oh, shit, you just told on yourself.
All right, well, we're going to end it there. The world is flat.
God damn it. Wow.
No, it's definitely round.
You said it
it's
3
definitely
times. Wow.
There's a cliff somewhere.
No, it's definitely round. Trust me.
You run into any UFOs out there?
No, I have not.
He's like, I'm done.
I haven't ran into any UFOs or anything like that. But look, the world is beautiful, you know, and I think that's what I enjoy about flying. When you fly from point A to point B, you don't see division of this country versus that country, right? You just see
God's creation.
Yeah, God's creation, a beautiful place, and that's one of the freedoms flying give you. You know, you're between heaven and earth, and I think it's one of the best office spaces in the world, man.
Word. Well, Captain Barrington Irving, where can they find you or get more information on the Flying Classroom?
Sure. So look us up at flyingclassroom.com, but definitely check us out on social media. Captain Barrington Irving or Captain Irving. You'll see us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even tracking the project of what we're doing with students to build this race car for Trayvon Martin. Go to GoFundMe, look up Experience Aviation, experienceaviation.org. You'll see more information, and on GoFundMe, you'll see how you can support. We got tons of people just literally coming together to support this project for these students in honor of Trayvon.
I'm definitely donating to that.
Yeah, amazing. And I'm definitely going to make sure we get Envy to come out there too, because I know he'll be into it.
Would definitely love that.
Thank you, my brother.
No, thank you guys. Thank you.
Captain Barrington Irving, it's The Breakfast Club.